Morning. It's Mayor Chris Jenson here on a beautiful Valentine's Day for Mental Health Monday. Kristen Boice, my good friend, my Valentine in mental health. Thank you so much for once again joining with me. How are you this morning?
I am fantastic, and I'm so happy to be here. This is the highlight of my week, really. So
Good. Well, it's the highlight of my week. It's great that it's on Monday. I'm so glad that we're doing this on Valentine's Day. You look great in your red. I got my red sweater vest on today. My arms are free, but my core is red. I'm looking forward. I'm going down to the square later today to hand out some gift cards to some unknowing Valentines that I have around the city. So it's gonna be a great day, and we're just so good. But you know what? Honestly, it's maybe not a great day for some people, and that's okay too. So hopefully people are all tuned in today. We're going to talk all things love here on Mental Health Monday. We welcome you. We're so glad that you're here with us. Again, I'm joined by my good friend Kristen Boice, the owner of Pathways to Healing Counseling here in Noblesville. And we're going to have a great conversation. We're going to tackle some statistics, which I appreciate Kristen talking about. I love stats. I'm a numbers person at times. So looking forward to hearing more about that. We're going to talk about love languages. We're going to talk about exercises to make your love stronger. And then we're also going to talk about some love killers. I'm sure that's not how you actually worded it, but that's how I'll word it today. Some things that maybe that causes problem in the love department. So, but before we do all that, we're going to do a little square breathing to get our mind set right before we tackle this topic. So, Kristen, you want to lead us through a little square breathing exercise?
yes, anytime you're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, anxious, the first thing I want you to do is feel your feet on the floor. Step number one, that helps ground and center your nervous system. And then we're going to inhale through our nose for 4. We're going to hold for 4 and slowly exhale out your mouth for 8. We want that exhale to be longer than the inhale so your body can come back into rhythm, basically. Because if we are hijacked, our nervous system goes into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. We hold our breath. And this is one of my most favorite things when I'm working with a client. I'm like, you just held your breath when you said that. They're like, I did? I didn't even recognize I was holding my breath. I said, yeah, because that's just your normal. So I invite everyone to practice this every hour, 3 to 4 breaths at least. So let's practice together. Feet on the floor. Get comfortable in your chair, or if you're standing, a big deep inhale through your nose and hold, and then a slow exhale out your mouth. It's almost like you're letting all that air out of the balloon. So inhale, hold, and exhale. Just notice and connect to your nervous system. You can also do counting. So you can do inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can even just exhale out for 8 and skip the hold if that's too much. So just play with what works best for you. And the invitation is to actually put this into practice. So when you actually need it, your nervous system will go, oh, the first thing I need to do is breathe, feet on the floor, regulate myself.
Yeah, Christina, one of the things that I have taken away the most over the last couple of years from you has been about anxiety. I've had anxiety in my life. I work with it. I manage it in my daily life. Everyone has anxiety. I believe that. But you talked a lot about how anxiety lives in the body. So I have talked a lot about exercise is important for me. And so if I have struggled with some anxious moments, I try to get up and go walk around, or I'll go down to the basement of City Hall and take some laps or walk around the square. So I kind of view that the same way with square breathing, and that we're letting this out of the body. We're processing out some of the bad things going on. So that's a good little trick I've always thought about, whether it be breathing or moving, which usually go hand in hand. You're working these things out and letting the bad stuff out of your body. So appreciate that. So good. Well, I appreciate that exercise. Just a few ground rules here as we dive into love. If you have any questions or just want to say hi, or you want to share your love story, if you need to write it out to get it out right here on this Facebook page, do it. We love to hear it. I love to see the people that tune in throughout the week. I think I've told you before, Kristen, we usually average about 2,000 people over the course of 2 weeks that watch this video, which is mind-blowing to me, from all over the world, which is awesome. And that's why we do it, to try to have this conversation. So again, we're tackling love on this Valentine's Day. The sun is shining in Noblesville, Indiana. Hopefully it's shining wherever you are. And so with that, Kristen, you want to walk us through some stats that you wanted to share with us about this topic? Good morning, Joni, by the way. Thanks for having me.
Good morning.
Joni's already chiming in and letting us know that she's here with a heart emoji. Gosh, it's going to be a great day.
I love that. The first thing I want to say about love is really the essence of what I work on in my own life and with others, is this whole cliche of loving yourself. Like, you know, the movie from Jerry Maguire when they're like, you complete me. I want to blow that up because it's just not true. And it's setting up these unrealistic expectations. So first things first, if you're single or you're looking for love, or maybe there's been heartbreak, maybe there's been a divorce, a separation, maybe there's a broken relationship, or you have felt rejection or abandonment, I want to say today, this is about loving yourself, and it's not easy. Shame wants to tell us what's wrong with us, how we're defective, how we're unlovable and unlikable. And we have an insatiable need to be understood, to be seen, to be loved and acknowledged. So I want to say that first of all, before we jump into these statistics, because you're not a number. So if shame comes up while I'm saying these statistics, take a deep breath and know that there's nothing wrong with you. We're not taught how to be in relationships. And that's why I'm passionate about what I do, is to help equip people to know how to first be in a relationship with themselves. And then we can have healthy relationships with others. So let's jump into some stats. Wanted to set the groundwork there in terms of if something comes up and it causes a response for you, write it down so you can process it. So the first stat is, I want to say, in terms of statistics, 50% of marriages, you all probably know the statistics, end. And I'm going to tell you some reasons why. We're going to go into why do marriages end? Like, what's the reason for this? And I want to say second marriages is a pretty high statistic that a lot of people aren't aware of. 60% of second marriages end, and then it jumps third marriages to 73% end in divorce. So you can see the progression. If we don't do the healing work after that first one, we'll go on and unconsciously pick the partner. It looks like in a different package, but same dynamics, same patterns, maybe the same emotions are getting evoked. So it's really important to do this deeper work. Okay, we want to know, why are all these marriages ending? You want to hear this? So let's
maybe. No, yes.
So why are they ending? This is according to research. Again, research isn't bulletproof. It doesn't cover everything, and we need to keep that in mind. So first stat that shocked me, really, because I'm a marriage therapist, was this: lack of commitment was 73% of why marriages end. So let's dive deeper into the statistics, and we'll see kind of how this story takes shape. Okay, 56 agree that they're just not a match. Like, they kind of just aren't a match. They thought they were at the beginning, the honeymoon phase, and they realized, you know what? We're just not compatible. We're not a match. Okay, 55% is because of infidelity. I work a lot on infidelity cases, betrayals, and many number of reasons. It doesn't have to be even another partner. A betrayal can feel like maybe it's an addiction issue. Maybe there was hiding in secrets. Maybe there was some manipulation. So it doesn't always have to be what we think it is. So 55% is infidelity. 46% they said they got married too young. They didn't really know themselves well enough. They got married too young. It wasn't the other person. They just didn't know who they were. So they didn't get a chance to really formulate, who am I? What do I like? What don't I like? They went from perhaps living at home to jumping into marriage, and didn't have that sense of individuation and separation to discover what they liked, what they didn't like, and their beliefs. Have they done enough to identify their beliefs? Okay, let's keep going. The 44% said lack of equality in the relationship. They didn't feel like it was a partnership. They felt like one person was doing all the work. The other person wasn't as committed to the relationship. So the lack of equality in the relationship. 41% said lack of preparation for marriage. So this is huge. I mean, people don't have a preparation. They don't know how to be in a relationship. Maybe they weren't modeled what a healthy marriage looks like or a healthy relationship. So they didn't get the tools. They weren't equipped to know how to be in a relationship. Domestic violence or abuse is 25%. And I want to go back to one I skipped, which is the one I see most often in what I do, is 45% was a lack of realistic expectations. And so that's a pretty big statistic. So if we're like, ooh, I kind of thought marriage was this based on a movie or based on what I saw on the outside with another relationship, they thought, well, we're not supposed to have any disagreements. We're not supposed to have any conflict. This is what it should look like. And I'm like, no, healthy relationships have disagreement and conflict. It's how do you work through it? If you're shoving it all under the rug, it's going to metastasize somehow. And we might not even know where or how it's metastasizing. So what do you think of these statistics? Do any of them shock you?
I'm not sure I'm totally shocked by it. You hear about it all the time. I'm at an age now where not a lot of my friends, but kind of I'm at late 30s where some of these things might start to creep in. These statistics start becoming true. So it doesn't shock me. And I'm in a marriage, that I know is not perfect. But it takes work, and so you have to be committed to making that work. And really, it's work on yourself. I've been working really hard on, understanding myself, make sure I am healthy. Because if I'm in a good spot, that trickles down. That trickles down to my marriage. It trickles down to my kids. That's a huge part of the work. And so I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up. Are you willing to work on yourself? Are you willing to love yourself and make sure that you have the tools necessary to be a good person on your own?
Exactly. One of the statistics that I didn't mention about the age, because this is what I think is really interesting. 60% of couples married between the ages of 20 and 25 end up in divorce. 60%. If you get married younger, your chances of kind of working through that, because you don't have the skill. I mean, I go back to my 20-year-old self. I didn't have the tools. I didn't have that. I didn't have the awareness, the self-awareness about what I'm contributing to the dynamic. I hadn't worked out some of my childhood stuff. So
one of the things that I was processing too about the multiple marriage statistics, that makes a lot of sense to me. Because again, I think if you go into a second marriage without processing the first, you're just, as you talk about, if you're suppressing it down, it's going to bubble up at some point in time. So it's a matter of working through and processing that, whether it be a first marriage or whatever it was, before you move on to something else.
Yeah. And we all have previous relationships that we learned a lot from. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't, you learned a lot from your parents or other relationships that were modeled to you, like, oh, I like that, I don't want to do that. And then sometimes we unconsciously, a lot of times, we repeat patterns because it's familiar. We may not like it, but it's familiar. So let's dive into the 4 relationship killers, shall we?
Yeah, let's, while we're on this kind of this slippery slope here, maybe we can end on something positive. I don't know, maybe.
Oh yeah, then I'll give you the tools on
okay.
What to do.
Gosh,
end on
I wasn't
that.
quite prepared for this.
Yes.
I already had one buntini this morning. I'll have to get some more if we're going to keep going down this path.
And this is a great opportunity to do some self-reflection, because a lot of us have things that we contribute to the dynamic of all of our relationships, whether it's a romantic relationship, a parent-child relationship, or a friend relationship, neighbor, boss. We all have relationships. Here's the 4 that will kill a relationship. This is based on Dr. John Gottman's work. It's been around a long time, and it's because they're pervasive. They've infiltrated the relationship on a regular basis. So I want to set the tone. We can all do these. Are you doing it on a regular, frequent basis? Okay, in no particular order. We're going to start with number 1 is contempt. Contempt is an internal rage that has metastasized, and it is the energy exchange between the 2 people involved in that relationship. And that starts off typically pretty early in the relationship. We might see contempt bubble up, but then when it's really good, it's good. And when it's not, it's really bad. So contempt is number 1. Number 2 is criticism. Criticism is a relationship killer. So if you let's say you were criticized as a child and you felt like you were never good enough, shame bubbled up, you may either swing the pendulum to like, oh, I'm never going to give any feedback and just kind of almost stifle that, or you may in inadvertent ways be very critical of your partner. And oftentimes that's because you're critical of yourself because you don't feel good enough. So criticism, research says that we need 5 acknowledgments to 1 criticism. 5. We need 5 positive interactions to the 1 not so positive interaction. So think about that. How much is criticism in a relationship and how much is you acknowledging in gratitude or just saying what you appreciate about that person? Okay, number 3 is stonewalling.
So if somebody in my office starts ticking off all the great things, I just should be prepared that number 6 is going to really where doomsday hit. So they're all taking notes right now.
Yes. These are ones that if you can regularly check yourself, you can change. If someone doesn't want to do this work and doesn't want to own and acknowledge their contribution to the dynamic in the relationship, you can't change another person. You can just go, okay, how do I want to set some boundaries around this? What decisions do I need to make for myself? So number 3 is stonewalling. And this is someone that kind of goes into freeze. So contempt and criticism are more about the fight mode. If we look at survival state, fight, flight, freeze, let's use those 3. Criticism and contempt are more fight responses. Stonewalling is more of a freeze response. It's where you're trying to interact with someone and say, how are you feeling? What's going on? Or you're getting feedback and you just shut down. You just don't react. You just don't interact with it. You refuse to interact with it. And so stonewalling can be like you're literally talking to a wall. That's where the term came up. So if you think about walls built, people building walls to self-protect, it ends up being a demise to the relationship because you can't connect because there's a wall there. You're using it to protect yourself from blame, shame, and judgment, and you're really preventing connection, which is what you really want. So stonewalling kills relationships.
Or you use the word fine. I'm fine.
Yes, feelings
inside, not expressed.
We did that in unison. Yes,
that's a big one. Fine. I mean, that's a form of stonewalling, I would imagine.
It's a form of stonewalling because then I'm playing Switzerland. Yeah. I'm like, I'm not going to say anything that's going to trigger you, and then we're going to have this whole huge conversation that I don't have the energy for. So I'm fine because I don't want to go there. It's too exhausting and it's too much. I don't want to spend my time listening or going back and forth. So I will just play it safe. It's not really, but that's fine. Yeah. And that I will tell you when couples come in and the word fine, the bristling has already started because we're at this has been a pervasive pattern in the relationship for a long time. And number 4 is withdrawing. And this is also, so if we look at stonewalling, that's a freeze response. Withdrawing, and I'm saying consistently, this is avoidant tactic. This is flight. I'm going to flee to protect myself. And some of these as children, the fight, flight, freeze responses are adaptive because you're in a survival state. But these 4 patterns are ones that are maladaptive now. So if you're withdrawing and you are refusing to engage in any kind of hard conversation and you're like, I'm out consistently, you're not really facing discomfort and working through that conflict because you don't want to go there. You don't like the conflict. Well, most of us don't like conflict. It's not fun. Our nervous system doesn't like conflict. That's why we have to build up a tolerance to have hard conversations through our breathing, through working on our inner child triggers, to working on our unmet needs. But these are really 4 that you need to keep in mind when you're in any relationship. Are you contributing to these? Do you fall into any of these categories? Then you can do something about it. That's the beautiful part.
That's awesome because I think that I'm sure everyone watching today can see some form of something there. But to your point, hope is there. You know, I mean, it's important to acknowledge that, not shelve it aside, not build a wall up around it, but know where you may be not benefiting your relationship or moving that ball forward and addressing it.
Exactly. One of mine, to give you an example, is I can go to criticism if I feel anxious. And that took a lot of self-work for me to go, what's happening? Because I can get like, we're going to be late, and I know I've shared this example, I can go, okay, everybody, I could get real like, come on, why are you? And that is because I'm anxious. And if I don't own that, I can come across as very critical. And it can, and the other person can have it land as shame. So I have to manage my own anxiety in order for me not to come across as critical. That is an example of taking radical ownership of my own stuff. Like, okay, I've got to breathe and I have to pause before I react and nurture that anxiety so I'm not offloading it onto my partner or my kids.
Yeah. And I'll join you in the self-reflection pool here, and the fact that, I do get a little bit critical at times when approached. With Julie Jenson will tell you, if there's ever a hot topic come up, I'm quick to defense real quick. But then I'm mad that I get angry then if she's not willing to just share right away what's on her mind. But, so it's this constant battle of like, okay, I need to sit in it, quote unquote, for a while if there's an issue. I love to talk about sitting in it. Don't necessarily love to sit in it myself. So I'm working on that as well.
It's tough, isn't it? Because you
It's
want to
tough.
solve it because of the discomfort you feel inside. We're like, those should get on the table.
Yeah.
I'm the same way, which can come across and that can shut the other person down because it can feel intense.
Yeah.
And so I have to go, okay, he needs some time and I have to self-regulate so I can manage my own response to him needing to pause. And that's healthy because a lot of times the more I push, the less it's effective in getting us where we need.
You get the wrong answer, the more you push. And that's what I was joking. And I think I've said this on the show. My spouse and I have different communication styles. I'm a talker, obviously. She's a writer, so I want to address it and let's talk about it. And she likes to write it out, which is really helpful. I mean, it's good to know that, but I always laugh if there's ever a heated moment. Usually the next day I'll have a long email from Julie Jenson it's beautifully scripted. Not scripted like in a bad way, but written out, I'm like, oh, but it's just knowing different communication styles and that can be frustrating.
As she's digested and done some self-reflection, which is really powerful. And I love that you've kind of figured this out. Like I'm more of a verbal processor and she has to go kind of inward to rumble through what is she feeling, what's going on. And then she writes it out to get it out. And then that can come through and probably land better.
Much.
And she's out of a freeze response.
Yes, much.
So we can look at those responses and how effective it can be when you know it works for you.
Yeah. Well, let's turn to a little bit a happier way. Give us some guidance on some exercises to strengthen our relationships, whether it be our marriage, our friendships, or whatever it may be. Let's get some practical things in people's hands today.
Number 1 is practice gratitude together. And
Deputy Mayor Matt Light is working on gratitude. He just said this morning he's working on it. So you must have talked to him about it because he's working on gratitude.
I love it because there's science behind this. It's not something I'm just pulling out of the sky. There's actually concrete research that says someone that lives in gratitude and couples that practice gratitude together, or friendships where you're expressing gratitude for the other person and what you appreciate about them as a human, as somebody in your life, there is connection and a felt sense of safety that comes out of that. It changes your affect, which means it changes your mood. It changes your outlook on life. And sometimes it's hard to find what you're grateful for. Let's be honest. It's not been an easy season for anyone. And when we've had losses, sometimes it makes you appreciate what is true, like what you are grateful for and those relationships that matter to you. So don't wait to tell someone what you're grateful for. If you get into the practice of connecting to what you're grateful for in your own life, then that will transcend in your couple relationship. Number 2, look for the good. We spend so much time going, oh my gosh, you're driving me crazy, and not liking certain parts of your partner or your friendship. Or not. Look for the good parts. Look for what you do appreciate. Look for what does light you up instead of looking at the bad, quote unquote, bad, or what we don't like. Number 3 is working on accepting quirks. We all have quirks, and your partner's probably going to have quirks. I know my partner has quirks. I have quirks. And when we can go, you know what? It's not that big of a deal that whatever it is, chew that way or put your fork up against your teeth and make a noise. I'm making this up, but you get the idea, these little idiosyncrasies. Let's work on just accepting those. The bigger things that really are relational issues, the 4 apocalypse of relationships that we just talked about, let's work on some of those and let's accept some of the things that are not as big of a deal. They're little idiosyncrasies that we all have. So acceptance is part of it. The acknowledgement. If we can learn to acknowledge each other's emotions, even when we don't agree, and you might completely think, I don't even agree with this, but I'm going to try to understand how the other person feels. Listen to understand instead of listening to be right or wrong. So pure, coming just from a pure essence of I really care about you and I really want to understand, and I can acknowledge how you feel even though I don't agree. These are things they're amazing. I'm telling you, they're life changing. And here's the last part: write notes on post-it notes. Put post-it notes up about what you appreciate about the person. And the last one is, I'm adding bonus tips in here. This one is really important. And sometimes if you've had any kind of physical abuse or sexual abuse, it can be hard, but holding hands or any kind of that statistically shows that the body will actually have a felt sense of safety and calm down. And some people, if you're triggered by holding hands, there's probably something there that needs to be explored. But hand holding, if you're watching TV, if you're on a walk, hold hands, connect, look at each other in the eye with loving, soft gazes. Pay attention and put your phones down. This is the thing that is killing relationships too, although they're wonderful. Because it's like, yeah, they're talking, but I'm not really fully focused because I'm on my phone. So put the phone down and really turn towards your partner and listen with soft gaze. Not, I mean, you can see my body language. Like, this is a defensive stance, right? And I look mad. I look annoyed. I look irritated. So put the phones down. Put the phones down and with your kids, with your friends, and with your partner, whoever you're with. If you're going to lunch with them, put your phone down. I'm begging.
Yeah, that's great advice. I actually have been trying very hard at church on Sundays to not have my phone, although I use the Bible app on it, but not like check Twitter mid-sermon. And I'm working on it. So
it's hard because we get uncomfortable. Like if we're in an elevator, if we're wherever we are, we're like, or waiting in a doctor's office, we're like, we're on our phones because we don't like that discomfort. We want stimulation. We want to kind of move away from what we're actually feeling and the discomfort we feel.
Yeah. Real quick, I have a gratitude moment from my wife who, based on my quirks, I don't like to sleep in silence. I like a sound machine. She hates that, but I'm so grateful that she has been willing to work with me and come to a willingness to accept that quirk in me, because that's something that I cannot stay in silence. And so I need to have that noise, and I know she does not like it. And I acknowledge that. And I'm really grateful for her on that. So
that was a great example of an acknowledgement.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You just modeled what it looks like to have an acknowledgement and say that to her.
Yeah.
And how much you appreciate that.
It's probably the only model I'll ever be, but that's great. So real quick too, if someone's having a bad Valentine's Day, if their relationship is not good, if they're going through a divorce, or if they're separated, or just not in a good spot right now, maybe a piece of advice for them today.
The main thing I'm going to tell you is there's nothing wrong with you, because that shame wants to tell you that, man, nobody wants you, nobody loves you, and it's not true. You are lovable and you are enough. And self-compassion is so hard for us because we go in, that shame just keeps us in the dark hole. And now there's time for you to find yourself, which is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves, is to discover, who are we? What do I want in my life? What am I going to tolerate and not tolerate? What am I going to handle? And just, what am I going to do differently? Who do I want? And here's the other piece about this. The relationship will not make you feel worthy. And I have to work with this all the time when anyone's going through a divorce. They're like, but I want to find love. I go, I understand that. I get that. Makes so much sense, because we don't want to be alone. And at the same time, if we can accept that we are whole and enough, and the relationship isn't going to make us happy, because people are in relationships and extremely lonely. I mean, they're in marriages and they're extremely lonely. It's not the relationship that is going to make you feel less alone or more lovable. It's you taking the time to love yourself. And I know it sounds so cliche, and I get that, but it is the essence of the work. It truly is. And you're not going to love yourself all the time. That's not realistic. It's how do you work through the shame when it comes up that says you're not enough to be able to go, you know what? I'm going to write it out to get it out. I'm going to talk to somebody, whatever that looks like for you, to kind of gain a sense of self-worth and self-value. There's no price you can put on that.
Yeah, I love that. This has been an incredibly fast half an hour talking about love here. So as we wrap up, if someone's in crisis right now, as we always end, Kristen Boice, where can they turn?
1-800-273-TALK, 24 hours a day, any time of week. If you don't want to talk on the phone, you can text 741-741 and just type in connect, and someone will text you back right away. You don't have to walk through this alone. There are resources out there, and I know the city of Noblesville also has a page with lots and lots of resources that are available at your fingertips if you need additional support.
Yep, citynoblesville.org. So go on there and check it out. Kristen Boice, happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to all you guys watching out there, to my family and friends. Have a wonderful Valentine's Day. We love you. Come back in 2 weeks and we'll tackle a new topic together. But thanks, Kristen. Have a great day.
Thank you.